I was ready to give up chess altogether.
You're only given 30 seconds to make your decision and perform the shot.
You've been on top of the game now for more than a decade. How do you stay motivated? We are here at the amazing Olympus Disc Golf Course in the beautiful Florida mountains. It's the Chess.com Disc Golf Invitational. To my right, the greatest to ever do it in chess. To my left, the greatest to ever do it in disc golf. We're gonna have a blast. We're gonna dive into some disc golf and some chess questions right now.
That's one of the best turbos I've ever seen. So.
Really? Here we go, guys. You ready for some questions? Have some fun?
Yes, sir.
All right. Magnus, we're going to start with you and ask a question that I'm sure you've been asked before about when you got into chess. But because we're going to talk about these niche sports, I want to ask, when did chess become more than a hobby for you and you knew it was going to be something that might consume the rest of your life?
Well, chess is still a hobby to me.
Okay.
as well as a passion and work. Sometime in my teens, like early teens, I realized that I can be really good at this. And I started contemplating actually having a career in chess, being a professional. And I guess I decided finally when I was 16 that I was not going to pursue school after high school. And this was going to be what I do for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I asked that question because I know for chess players it often does start young, and I wanted to then go on to the disc golf side and say, same question to you, when did it become more than a hobby, and did it also start young for you?
I mean, honestly, the exact same age.
Okay.
Yeah, so 16, I started disc golf when I was 14, and about 16, my amateur career was coming to an end, and I went professional at the end of 2007, so just after turning 17. That's really when, you know, the hobby turned into the sport, and really carried it on from there. But disc golf at that time didn't really have a real big professional scene, so it wasn't really a career until I won my first world championship in 2012, so just after turning 21.
What does that look like when you transition from something being a hobby to a profession? What's the training regimen? How does that, even if it wasn't totally in your teens, maybe early 20s, but what would you describe as the things that defined it being more than a hobby?
I think the sacrifice is the biggest thing, not seeing friends, not seeing family. And with disc golf, it's traveling so much throughout the country and then finally around the world with the courses growing and the sport growing.
For you, Magnus, speaking of sacrifice, what does that look like to be the greatest chess player of all time? What did you have to sacrifice to pursue that?
I never felt like I had to sacrifice too much, in the sense that I do also travel a lot for chess. So I guess that is the biggest sacrifice, like the time that I've got to spend at home. But it's never felt that way. It's been something that I wanted to do. Also over time, I've become like a little bit pickier with the tournaments that I play, so that I travel a bit less in periods where I don't necessarily want to do that too much. But I still felt like I've had time to be at home with friends, family, you know, to build lasting bonds. So I feel like I've been really privileged and lucky overall.
You and I were watching Paul yesterday on the course, and we can see the details that he sees, or we don't see the details. He sees details we don't see. I want to ask you, when you are playing chess, what do you feel separates you at times in terms of the details you see from the other competitors that you face?
I guess it's sort of the same, that people have more or less the same tools to play, even though like you have certain techniques that you prefer. I think my decision making is a bit better, but why that is, I'm not completely sure. My evaluations are generally a bit better. That comes with experience, intuition, but I cannot tell like exactly what it is that I do like a little bit better. But I feel like I'm kind of decent at everything, and most people have like at least one phase of the game where they're not as good.
It makes sense. So Magnus and his opponents have the same pieces. You and your opponents have the same tools, like he said, the same disc. So can you speak to what is the details, the decision making, the thing that separates you and gives you an edge against the other competitors?
I think it's the decision making. When you have that pressure, when you step up to the shot, you're only given 30 seconds to make your decision and perform the shot. So you got to be kind of quick in that aspect, and then also having all the shots, whether it's backhand, forehand, reading the wind, and all these little details. But it's calming those nerves on each shot as well. coming from baseball, that's my background, is just reaction, reaction, reaction. So once I pick a shot, I'm just going with it and not thinking about second guessing my shot. So I think that's what's really helped me through the years.
The confidence.
The confidence definitely helps. Not second guessing myself.
Yeah.
Once I make my decision on what I'm doing, I'm going with it, sticking with it, and then, you know,
Can I ask
taking
a
that.
question? Like, how much do you use stats to make your decisions? Let's say there's a 1 meter gap. Do you know how often you can make those shots?
So not that exact stat. For me, like a backhand is probably my more preferred shot. So if I see like 3 different gaps, I'll give a percentage to them. Like this gap,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit 70% of the time, this one 30% of the time, this one 10% of the time. However I want to break it down. I know that was 110, but however I want to break it down. And I'll usually take the higher percentage shot. And then I know putting, I'm very confident in putting. So if I can get into like a 10-meter circle, I'm gonna take the one that puts me in the 10-meter circle more often, because that's, you know, the percentages are better that way, instead of just trying to put it under the basket every time.
You say you choose the one that you're more confident in. Do you ever have stats or thoughts on like, oh, this was a bad shot I hit last time? Is that ever in the back of your mind, or how do you keep that stuff out of the back of your mind?
It is really hard to not jump back to your past rounds and your past faults, but you also want to grow from that. And I know when you guys watched yesterday, there were 2 shots that were probably like a 5% gap, and I wouldn't normally take them, but those were my only options.
Yeah, Magnus, what is the chess correlation of that? I mean, is it like an opening you avoid, or what do you do to keep any losses or bad experiences you've had out of your mind when you're moving on to the next game?
I was just gonna say that it was so fascinating for me to see like the constant decisions you have to make of risk reward. There is like some of that in chess. Like you want minimal risk and maximum reward, of course. That's not always so easy. There is some of that in chess, that if there's an opening which I know is good, but it leads me to the kind of position where I've failed before, like then it can become an irrational fear. And for some people, even for me sometimes, I'd stay away, even though I know it's objectively good, because I have this irrational fear of playing there, which will make me play worse. So like instead of fixing the problem, I just try and avoid it.
Try to avoid is there a correlation to that? You know this is the right angle to take because you need this line, but last time you did it was a bad drive, and you got to do it again and take the right approach, even though you may be a little bit nervous about what happened last time.
Yeah, there's definitely moments like that. And then there's also moments where we call them like hero shots, where it's like you just want to get the crowd behind you and you want them to cheer, even though it's not the highest percentage shot. You just want to throw that disc as hard as you can and make it fly as far as it can and just get the show going. And that's actually a question I have for Magnus. Like, is there moments like that? Yeah, is there like a hero move in chess like that?
No, the problem is I'm really pragmatic when it comes to chess. At least in the tournaments that I really want to do well, then I do everything to maximize results. I'm really the opposite of a crowd pleaser, unfortunately.
You've done well, you've both done well, and I want to get to a question now about how do you stay motivated? You just mentioned your first World Championship was won in 2012. It was 12 years ago. You've been on top of the game now for more than a decade. How do you stay motivated?
It comes and goes. Like it's motivation is here and there. It's really the discipline part that's hard, but I love it and try to stay as disciplined as possible. There's always something that I can get better at, and I just actually had my first child back in October, so now that's like something that's even more fun because I want to be on top while he's growing up.
Yeah.
So it's something that is really pushing me, driving me. Injuries, coming back from them. I want to, prove a lot of people wrong, but I also want to prove to myself that I can get through this and continues.
But Magnus, same to you, man. I mean, you've been doing it for maybe 2 decades now on top of the chess world. How do you stay motivated?
It's kind of similar, that motivation comes and goes. Just last week I played a tournament where during the course of the tournament I was ready to give up chess altogether, and at the end my thought was, I love this game and I want to play forever. At some point you realize that it's hard to be like 100% all the time. I know that my best level is as good as it's ever been, but I also know that I don't have the energy and the motivation to be there all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it comes and goes a little bit. Sometimes I get you know, a bit lackadaisical. And then I start losing a couple of games, and then I get really motivated again. Yeah. As Paul said, like, discipline for me, especially during tournaments, like, that's the biggest thing. I know that even if I'm doing poorly, if I stay disciplined and do the right things, then things will turn around eventually.
I hear you guys both use the word discipline. Made me think of one of the things I was watching yesterday is that chess players have their disciplines, their routines. Disc golf pros also clearly have the way they approach the shot, the way they walk up and look. Are there any superstitions that disc golfers have? Do you ever notice them doing something exactly the same way after they had a good shot, or what can you say about that? There's
definitely superstition. I think each player has their own. I'm trying to think if I have one specifically. I definitely have a routine. I don't have a superstition that comes to mind right now. Okay. And it could change. They can come and go. You know, back when I played baseball, you never step on the line.
Yeah.
Here, I can't think of one exactly.
What's your pre-shot routine on the tee, for instance?
On the tee, I'll walk up to the tee. I'll kind of visualize my line, so I'll walk up and kind of go through the motions of what my footwork will kind of be, and then just getting my arm motion out there, and spotting where I want to throw and finding like that apex point of my shot. And putting, it's more so the routine is get your breath under control and just kind of timing it, and then it's more of a feel. When am I comfortable? When am I ready to go? Mm-hmm. It's not exactly the same every time, but I also like to look at it like a free throw in basketball when I'm putting.
I love it. Magnus, any thoughts on that? The routine superstitions chess players have, keeping your mind, your breath under control in pressure moments?
I was thinking about the same thing, that that's what I do whenever I'm in time pressure. I try and, you know, focus on my breath for a little bit. If that doesn't work, I'm probably too tired or excited to play well anyways. But a little bit of what you do is sort of subconscious. Like, I'm sitting at the board and it feels like suddenly it's almost an unconscious decision, like, okay, I have to move. But usually it's sort of at the end of a process, but it's not the same every time, for sure.
Well, this has been awesome. I have a final question for both of you. You won your first World Championship 2012. Magnus won his in 2013. Basically, been on top now for the same amount of years. Will you both be on top in 10 more years?
I'd love to be on top in 10 more years. I want to play for 10 more years. And I'm competitive, so if I'm not showing up to a tournament with the goal to win, then why show up?
10 more years is a lot.
Come on.
No, as I said, like, my motivation comes and goes a little bit, but basically I still love to play. So I'm going to continue to play for at least a few more years. If I'm showing up for a tournament to be 10th, then why show up?
Why show up? All right, well, there you have it. The mindsets of a couple of GOATs. They'll be doing it, I think, for 10 more years and likely be on top. And thank you for tuning in. For those of you who watch the Chess.com Invitational on the Disc Golf Professional Tour, and we'll see you around on Chess.com.